Today's guest is Tash Price, a powerhouse of a woman, incredibly inspirational and filled with so much incredible knowledge and skills and experience around nutrition, health, fitness. And Tash, you've done so many amazing things for people in the Rocky region, both as a business owner with your gym and then also in your education space and the programs that you run. And of course, I was one of the very lucky people who did one of your programs as well and learned a heck of a lot about nutrition and diet and food and additives, and to the point where my children now just roll their eyes at me when I ask them, what are the additives in that? No, we can't have that. Yeah, but I just want to say, before we get into this podcast, a very big thank you to you and the work that you do around that education space. You know, you're stepping out of that traditional norm where, you know, the Australian food pyramid and everything that we've ever been raised to learn about. And you're doing things a little bit differently with new research, new education, and you're sharing that broadly and widely. And for that, I'd like to say thank you. But I'd also like to welcome you to Rockhampton with Nyree Johnson, and thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to share your wisdom and knowledge with the audience because I definitely was able to get it one on one, but now I think the audience will get a lot of value out of what you have to share. But before really dive into it, I have a quirky question for you. So, if you could be an expert in anything at all in the world, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it is just women's health, especially for the women over 40, which is the space that I'm in now. And it's, my whole journey has just followed my own experience. And I've always just ended up attracting and working with the women that are in alignment with where I'm at in my own health journey at the moment. I just think there's just not enough support and education and that for women over 40. So, it's a tough time and it can be a really tough time, but it doesn't have to be. And that's sort of where my passion is at the moment now, is really learning everything I can about this next phase of life for myself, but then also to continue supporting and empowering other women so that they don't have to suffer, and they can thrive.
Yeah, that's amazing. So your expert topic aligns perfectly with the work that you do. Makes complete sense. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Like you touched on it just before, everything that you've done aligns with where you're at in life. But tell us about your journey in life in general and, you know, those key moments or people along the way as you were growing up and finding your feet and becoming a young adult. You know, those moments that have actually led you to be doing the work that you're doing with women's health in particular and, you know, women over 40.
Yeah, I'd love to. So food for me, was never, it was just something you enjoyed. You ate to enjoy the pleasure of the taste of food and so that you weren't hungry. And, growing up, I was always quite active, played a lot of sport, and, would go to the gym and whatever, but weight was never something that, I never really paid much attention to or had a big impact on me. I just focused on how I felt. And then I think, we owned a fast food chain, and we then had a young family, and our eldest son was diagnosed as possibly being autistic. And, this was 10, 11 years ago, and not knowing anything about autism, I was a new parent. It wasn't as freely spoken about as it is now as well. So I went trying to understand more about what this is and what can we do to support Bailey if it is an autism diagnosis. And that's when the world of nutrition and gut health was first opened to me. I come across a functional medicine practitioner, Dr. Mark Hyman, and he had done a lot of work with autistic children, some that were non-verbal autistic, that when they changed their diet and improved their gut health, these children were thriving and actually no longer even autistic. And that just completely blew my mind. And so then I just continued to learn more about that and understand the role that nutrition plays in our health, but also what is gut health. And, that just again completely blew me away because mental health has been a big part of my life as well. And then I could see the connection there between gut health and mental health. And, you know, more serotonin is made in our gut than our brain. And so if we have poor gut health, then that's going to lead to poor mental health as well. And so at the same time, you know, my husband was experiencing his own mental health challenges and was under the care of psychiatrists and psychologists. And so I remember taking my findings about, you know, nutrition and its important in gut health to these practitioners, and was basically laughed at and told that it was just woohoo, and completely dismissed all of my findings, which really, you know, was hard because, you know, it was so conflicting to what I was learning and reading. But um, I chose not to take their advice and continue to follow my own gut instinct and continue to, yeah, learn more about the role that food and nutrition played and the power of our gut, and then bring that into my own family's life to support not only our son, but Simon as well with his own mental health as well. So, yeah, that's where it all began. And then it just flourished from there. Simon had opened the gym, but I wasn't a part of it at that stage. He was the PT and I still worked in the fast food business. And that was the joke, that I fattened them up and he made them skinny. But it got to the stage where my values around food completely changed and my eyes were open to what it was that I was actually serving people each day. And it got to the point where I morally couldn't work in that business anymore. You know, we were in business with Simon's parents, so, you know, we didn't sell it, we kept it because it was, you know, partnership. But I stood back out of the, you know, working in the business behind the counter. And that's when I moved over and joined Simon in the gym, because that was more aligned with how my values had shifted around health. And I wanted to start to live in alignment with that and bring my knowledge into that space, and make a difference in people's health there. And I remember, I know I shared this story with you, but there was a lady one day I really started to see food addiction in that once I understood what happened, how food impacted our health mentally, hormonally, emotionally, and with our gut health as well. And you would see these repeat customers coming every single day. And prior to this, that was great. No, they were repeat customers. I loved
Mm,
seeing them every day. But then I could start to see the food addiction that they were experiencing, and it really saddened me. And it was one of the reasons why I had to step back. And there was one lady in particular who was a very regular, and she ordered this massive thick shake with all the toppings, this hot dog with all the trimmings. And as I was preparing it for her, she, you know, told me that she was diabetic, lactose intolerant, and celiac. And I was like, holy shit. And I said to her, you know, I knew her quite well because she was coming quite regularly. So I said to her, you know, do I need to call the ambulance now? And she laughed it off. And she said, no, it's okay. I'm going to go home, sleep this off, and then I'll pick the kids up. And that just really saddened me, because this food was making her so sick that she had to go to bed and sleep her day away to then be able to get up and function and, you know, pick the kids up, be a mother, and all those other roles. And yeah, it's happening, you know, everywhere. And I don't think we fully understand that the food industry it's making us sick, it's making us fat, it's causing disease and illness. And we can't trust the marketing labels. We need to
mm.
be educated and know what it is that we're eating and what we're putting into our precious bodies each day.
Absolutely agree. I guess, like, it's really easy to not know this stuff because you go your whole life living a certain way, eating a certain way, and none of us are perfect. Like, I did your program over 8 weeks and blew my mind. And I'm like, my goodness, you know, to the point where my son hates the fact that I'm very reluctant to buy pies now because I've got this app that you told me about called Yuka, Yuka, and you essentially scan a barcode and it tells you all of the additives that are in the foods and whether they're high risk, medium risk, or low risk. And if you scan something that's not good, it'll give you an alternative that's a better choice. So it's really quite handy. I'm scanning all the pies in the supermarket because my son loves pies, and I'm like, "There's no alternatives. I have nothing. I'm gonna have to make these myself." So then I started making pies, and, I'm still trying to protect the pastry, but anyway, just yeah, that's how, I guess, extreme I started going. I'm like, "Well, he loves pies. I need to replace these pies. What do I do here?" So, yeah, I made pie filling and then have been experimenting with pastries and bought a pie making mold thing from Kmart. And yeah, I just need to get my dad on board to teach me how to make the pastry better because he's a baker and
Yeah.
he does have those skills. So I've been saying to him, we'll have a pie making day one day. But yeah, it's just it's so fascinating. And like I think I started this program with you when I was 39, so I was almost 40, and it just blew my mind to the point where I got so angry at one stage, and I'd be texting you saying, my God, can you believe this is in this? And even the bath washes that we use, our skin being the biggest organ of our body, that I was like, "What?" And
Yeah.
so I'm scanning shampoos and bath washes and soaps to see is it all good or is it not? And yeah, so my kids
Yeah.
don't argue with me anymore. They're just like, I'm like, "What are the additives?" So previously we'd go to the supermarket and they'd, "Oh, can we have this? Can we have this?" And I'd be like, "Is it on special? Is it on special? Okay, sure." Now I'm like, "Did you scan it? Like, what are the additives in it?" Of course, I'm not perfect. Of course, I'm not perfect. We still eat, undesirable food from time to time, but being able to tune in and really figure out how that makes you feel, like I mentioned about the bread earlier, you don't really eat that much bread, and when I do, I can notice, "Oh, yep, that's why I don't eat the bread."
Yeah, exactly. And it's what you do most of the time that's important, not what you do now and then. And
Mm,
that's a really important message to remember with anything in life. So, yeah, we can still enjoy our favorite treats, but we just need to really understand and listen to our bodies.
mm,
That's a really important message because our body is giving us messages. We just need to listen to it. Even body fat. We shame ourselves, we beat ourselves up, we restrict our calories, we push ourselves in the gym, we shame ourselves, we feel guilty. But body fat is just a message back from your body. Like
mm,
it is not a failure, it is protection. And I think when I understood why the body stores fat, again, it was a massive aha moment. And I think, everybody needs to understand why the body stores fat because it's not that you're undisciplined or that you have no willpower or that you are any of those things. It is purely a breakdown in communication pathways in your body and the toxins in your environment. So your body is going to store fat when there is too much excess. So it's excess toxins, like you were just talking about the chemicals in our food, the plastics, the makeup, the cleaning products, our perfumes, our pesticides. Our liver can't detox them. So we have all these toxins that are, left floating around in our blood. They can't stay there because if they do, they end up in our organs, which is life threatening. So your body is keeping you safe by popping it into a fat cell. And
mm,
then it's hormone overload or an imbalance, especially excess estrogen, insulin, cortisol, which is our stress hormone. We're living in a stress saturated environment now. So again, there is too much excess of these hormones that isn't getting metabolized and detoxed through the gut and the liver and other pathways. So same as the toxins, it's getting stuck in the blood. So your body puts it into a fat cell to keep you safe. And it's just blockages in our detox pathways. It's a sign of poor liver health, poor gut health, blocked lymphatic systems, your skin as well. And then we have high insulin from just constant snacking all the time. We're told to eat 6 small meals a day. Doesn't work. We've got all this sugar and refined carbohydrates and stress and insulin, and it all just is causing your body to store fat. So it's more about working on opening up those detox pathways and reducing those toxins in your environment, and then your body will not store fat. It's not a
mm.
calories in, calories out issue, unfortunately. It's I wish it was that simple, but we're not a math equation.
Yes, yes. No, that was very interesting, and I guess it kind of talks to when we do that calorie deficit approach. that it works temporarily, but as soon as you stop focusing on that, it all comes back again.
Yeah, or it's not sustainable, especially for women, because our hormones need different environments throughout the month. So this is something that I've learned through my own, perimenopause journey as well, and understanding another reason why women are gaining fat, or feeling that shame or guilt, or lack of willpower or whatever. It's because where the message that we're getting from the diet and fitness industry does not align with a female hormonal cycle. So
Mm,
estrogen and progesterone need completely different environments. So estrogen thrives in a low carb environment. So that's when, your diet may work well, but then you come to the second half of your cycle from day 20 when your body's trying to make progesterone. Well, your body needs glucose to make progesterone. So that's why you're in that time of your cycle and you're trying to stick to your 1200 calories and all of that jazz, and you're struggling. You've got all this food noise, you're getting all these cravings, and you're white knuckling it for so long. And then you might give in and you'll have the chocolate, you'll have the cheese and biscuits or whatever it is. And then there's, I'm a failure, I'm no good, I'm undisciplined. And that just is a really deep downward spiral mentally, emotionally, and can lead to physically as well. And it just breeds shame and guilt, and it does not serve our
mm,
female cycle at all. That time of the month, you need to be eating more carbohydrates. That's
mm.
why your body is giving you those messages. It's asking for more. So you're not a failure. You need to eat more.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fascinating, and, particularly for women and how food aligns with cycles. It's something I'd never even considered in the past, but absolutely educated on now. Tell me a little bit about that story that you had with your regular customer who was a favorite customer, of course, because they were spending money in your business and, your business is your livelihood. It's what keeps your mortgage paid. It keeps food on your own family's table. It pays for school for children. And you're at that disconnect there with, well, I own this business. I need to work in this business, but it doesn't align with me anymore. Like that shift, what inspired that switch to go, okay, I can't work in this business anymore, even though I own it. I'm now going to the gym because that absolutely aligns with, like, that's the type of business that aligns with my values and the skills and experience that you have. Like, what inspired that shift and how did you go about it?
It was a tough decision to make. It was just it's like once you know something, you can't unknow it. And again, once I fully understood what was in the food, like, and how it makes us so sick, I just couldn't, it just went against my values and my morals. And I was like, I just couldn't, yeah, I couldn't do it. But interesting. So, and again, then I wanted to make a difference in the health space, because all I ever heard from, gyms and just the diet industry was calories in, calories out, exercise more, eat less. And I was like, no, like that's not it at all. And, women would come to the gym and, they'd be weighing themselves every day. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like the number on the scales, means nothing. It's nothing about your own self-worth or anything. And yeah, I just had to make a difference. I was like, I can't not follow this through now. It was
Mm,
just such a shift morally
mm,
that I was just like, yeah, no, I just couldn't do it. So, and I was grateful that I actually had that opportunity to pivot pretty easily into that space that was more aligned, that, Simon was already there
yeah.
living it. And I was, and kind of, I wasn't the personal trainer, but this was an added value that I could bring to
Mm.
the business. I didn't need to be the personal trainer because my space became the nutrition world and educating people around that side of their journey. Wow.
And from even my memories of your gym, because I did obviously go there for a long time, as you'll remember, and, it was that point of difference. It was a very different environment and atmosphere, very welcoming, no judgment. It was support and guidance and how can we, help you navigate whatever it is that you're trying to navigate, whether it was mobility or weight loss or flexibility, or general health and well-being. You definitely did have a point of difference there with with your gym between yourself and Simon and all the trainers that worked for you. I have great memories of being at that gym, and even with my own physical limitations because of the condition that I have with my back, like it was never an issue for either of you or any trainer to change whatever the program was for the morning, change it slightly just to accommodate my limitations. So,
Yeah.
it's part of your journey, and it's such a contrast, from the fast food and young children and, staring down the barrel of an autism diagnosis to food education and gut health to gym. That whole journey is quite incredible, which is one of the big reasons why I wanted you to talk about it on this podcast, because your journey is having an impact to so many people. And even all these years later, when I'm not a gym member of your gym because your gym isn't here in Rocky anymore, but all the lessons I learned, the compassion I was shown through that experience, you could really tell now in hindsight that you were 100% aligned with what you were doing when you and Simon were at that gym.
Yeah, that was and I'm so grateful for that like experience. And that was like our biggest mission was to have a space where everybody felt welcomed, like no matter what age, shape, size, fitness level they were at. Because again, I think it can be quite intimidating going into a gym, especially if you've had a bad experience previously. Like I don't know how many times, and I still hear it from women, I don't want to fail. And
Mm,
that just breaks my heart because I think you haven't failed, the system's failed you, like the whole message that we've been taught. And even, in the gym space, challenges are a massive thing and I hate them. I think they set you up to fail because they're only ever about quick wins and short-term success, which makes the gym look great or that program look great. But then what happens afterwards?
mm,
And so anytime, because we would always want the, clients like, oh, we want to do a challenge, we want to do a challenge. And I was like, okay, but my message was I'd always try and not call it a challenge, or the whole messaging through it was it's a program. We're focusing on lifestyle changes because that's how it has to be. It's
yeah,
got to be a lifestyle shift. Any changes you make to improve your health, whether that's to lose weight, have, better movement, less joint pain, less bloating, better mental health, whatever it is, you need to be able to maintain consistency in those habits. So if the program is going to be too restrictive or something that you can't see yourself doing for the next 6, 12, the rest of your life, essentially, don't do it. Like, no, you'll change your mind. Don't put that pressure and expectation on yourself. Like, it's not about 8 weeks, 12 weeks. It's about the rest of your life, and making, progress, not perfection.
absolutely. Yeah. So like being in Rocky in particular and, living close to the Capricorn Coast, we've talked a lot about business ownership and motherhood and parenthood. And, you know, how has being in Rocky in particular shaped your journey though? Like what's different or maybe it's not different or obvious, but, what is living in Rocky, being in Rocky, raising a family in Rocky, having a business in Rocky, how's that shaped your story?
Well, I grew up in a small country town in Dysart out in central Queensland. So Rocky to me felt like just a big country town, which that's one of the things I love about it. Like, there is just such a strong sense of community. And we felt that, in our gym, with our clients and the ripple effect that that had outside of that. And that's what I love to see as well was the ripple effect and just the connections that you can make. And yeah, it was just a big country town and it was easy to be seen, but to also make a difference. I found, when you go to the biggest cities, they're so busy, everyone's just in a rush. Like, I just really liked the stillness or the slowness at times of Rocky, I suppose. Like, being able to
Sometimes
make those
people think
genuine connections, in business, but personally as well. A lot easier.
absolutely. And sometimes people think that the slowness or, the pace is too slow or backwards or whatever, but I don't think
No, no,
I don't think they got the point.
no,
They might
no,
still
they
be
don't.
learning that lesson about what it is, the gem of a town that we're actually living in. And of course, you live on the sunny coast now, and that's for, reasons that suit your family, but you're still supporting and impacting the people in Rocky. It's
Yeah,
you
majority of
get a
the
whole
clients I'm working with now are in
mm,
Rockhampton. So I'm
yeah,
still very much connected to the town and, always will be. We've still got family in Rocky. We come back and we visit. And I said to you before, we've been at the coast for 18 months now, and it's only just starting to feel
mm,
like home. And we were back in Rocky not so long ago. And it was different coming back, but it's still like when you drove in, it felt like, your home as well. It was quite interesting.
yeah, yes. No, I do remember that. I spent some time in Longreach and Brisbane, and every time I'd come home, I'd be like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah,
And everything is 10 minutes. That's what's so good about it. And Brockhampton has everything you need.
yes, yeah. You just have to be patient. They
Yeah.
might not have it at midnight like they
Yeah.
do in Brisbane, but they'll have it at 9 a.m. the next day.
And that's not a bad thing. We all need to slow down
Yeah.
and lower our cortisol levels.
Absolutely. So tell me a little, I've got a question for you. You get to choose either end of the scale here, but thinking about either a monumentally huge challenge that you've overcome or a significant achievement that you want to talk to, like either end of the spectrum or anything in between. But anything that you've been through that comes to mind that's a pivotal point in your life that's really shaped, your journey and your perspective on how you navigate the world essentially. Do you have anything in mind that comes to you?
They probably overlap a little bit, but I think the gym for us was an extension of our family.
Yeah.
Like we lived and breathed that for 12 years. Like it was a massive part of us. And, so it's a great success and learning, many challenges. But again, those challenges, we grew from it as well. And as you do in any challenge. So I wouldn't change them now, even if I could do it all over again. You can always look back in hindsight and yes, wish you'd made different choices at different times, but they've shaped our journey in one way or another. And there's always a lesson to be learned and something to be grateful from at any challenge. But I think one of the things I'm most proud of is the impact that we had through Vibe. We changed hundreds of maybe even thousands of people's lives. And it's like I said before, it's just a ripple effect. A mum became happier and healthier in her home, and that rippled through to her kids. She's then passing on the value and importance of taking care of your own self to her children, which is huge and something that, isn't easy to do. But we, again, need to understand that we are a role model and our kids are learning more from what they see us do than what we say. And so, yeah, so seeing just not just women, we had men too, but we had more women. But so seeing everyone's lives thrive, the friendships that were formed in that gym, where people are now lifelong friends, their families are friends, they holiday together. Like to know that we're a part of that, like we connected, those people is something that, yeah, I hold closely and, makes the bad days, you know,
Mm.
bring gratitude for that. So, but then that was the tough thing, because we loved it and it was so much, like I said, it was an extension of our family. When the time came that we had to make a choice to relocate for our son, it was tough because it did mean, ending this chapter of our life. And yeah, that was a really big challenge and a tough decision to make. But as we would tell everybody else, you have to do what's best for you. And, we had to make that decision for Bailey and for the boys. So yeah, it's it's our greatest success and our proudest moment, but it was also a really big challenge as
Yeah.
well.
And being a business owner is not easy, as you would absolutely know from two completely different industries with fast food and then fitness, health and fitness.
Mm,
And of course, you're still a business owner with your Gut Health with Tash program that you roll out. But yeah, I can imagine the challenges would have been monumental. I certainly know that they can be in the world of small business.
yeah. And especially during COVID, because obviously our gym got closed down and I had to go back and work at the fast food shop because we still owned it. So that was a massive challenge because I was back day to day working in a business that completely went against my values. But again, it is what it is. Like I said before, you have to put food on the table, you've got to pay your own bills, and the business had to run whilst another one was pivoting and,
Mm.
had to be reshaped. So, yeah, that
I
was
I could
another
imagine I could
massive
imagine
challenge.
people yeah, they would have come to the fast food place and ordered something, and it would have taken everything within your soul to not educate them on the choice that they were making.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it is what it is. I love that food. I do not have it often. I probably have it maybe once a year, and, it's delicious, as all fast food generally is, and none of us are perfect, but, yeah, I
Yeah.
could just imagine knowing you the way I know you, you would have had this internal conflict going, "Oh, just need
Yeah.
to tell you something,
It was
but
it
yes,
was
I'll take
tough.
your money because I need to pay my rent."
Yes, it was tough. It was a challenging few months, to say the
Mm,
least.
yeah. So tell me, what drives you today? So the work that you do, I'm sure it can be really rewarding, but it could also be quite upsetting and frustrating, especially when you hear people, particularly women, beating themselves up. But what keeps you going every day these days with the work that you're doing and the variety of different things that you're involved with?
I think, when you do start to see or your clients' lives change, or you get a message from someone to say, "Hey, you know, this has changed for me, and I'm now," they're happier, they're healthier, they're living their life instead of just existing. I know there are some days where I think I care too much. I feel like sometimes I care more about other people's health than they do sometimes. But that's just because I'm just so passionate about helping women, empowering them to understand that they're not broken. They are not a failure. Like that whole word just breaks my heart. And I
Mm,
hear it so often. And I know that there are so many women that don't, reach out for help or try something new because of that fear of failure from previous experiences. And, I just want to continue helping and just spreading that message that, giving women a voice that, you don't have to suffer. And especially through, these perimenopause years, because I think that is just a given. We just assume that we have to suffer with weight gain and hot sweats and sleepless nights and basically just feeling like shit and surviving instead of thriving. And it's so wrong. Like it's just not true. It doesn't have to be your experience and your journey. And there is a way to live a lifestyle where you don't have to experience those things and
mm.
suffer.
No, I absolutely love it. There's nothing more powerful than that to keep you getting up every day, I guess. It wouldn't be hard to just bounce out and go, right, I'm going to change the world today.
Yeah.
I'm going to change the world for 5 people today. Or, yeah.
You know what? I do it for one person.
Yeah.
That's because it's again, there's always that ripple effect that takes
Mm,
place. So, yeah, even just with your journey, the difference that it's rippled through to your family,
yeah.
they're going to have a happier and healthier life now because of what they're learning from mum
Mm.
and the
As
different
long as they
choices that
stop
they're
rebelling.
making.
As long as they stop rebelling and,
Yeah.
yeah, can I have this from the supermarket? And then there's the compromise on the additives, not the compromise on whether it's on special or not. I've got one more question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to the next generation coming along after us, what would it be?
Understand that your health is your most valuable asset. Nothing is more important than your health, and your health is your responsibility. So you have to take care of it and don't take no for an answer. Like, trust your own gut. And if you're not getting the support that you need from a practitioner that you might have, gone to for help, get a second opinion, keep asking questions and seeking the answer because what you're experiencing, even if it is common, is not normal.
Mm,
And I think we just really need to understand that the value of our health. And yep, it needs to invest our time and our money into it because it's going to cost us at some point if we don't. It's going to cost us years off our life. It's going to cost us time away from work, time away from our families. It's going to cost us financially with medical bills and specialist bills and all of that. And yeah, we've only got one precious life. So, let's make the most of it and care for it because your life depends on it. So,
that's pretty powerful advice. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the time that you've given to me and to this audience. I know how valuable your time is. Your skills and experience are in hot demand, and you've carved out time to spend with us. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.